Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. We've got our eye on the Chicago Bears. The team started mandatory minicamp on Tuesday. Of course, everyone wants to see how the season will unfold with first-year head coach Ben Johnson and sophomore quarterback Caleb Williams. But let's start with day one of minicamp. How'd that go? Well, Johnson called it an extension of what they've been doing in OTAs the last couple of weeks and said he's seen gradual improvement.
You can see growth from each guy. You can see growth from each unit, and it's pretty cool to see it all come together. So, like expected, we had everyone in the building here today. Whether they're out there on the field or not, it's another story. But it was good to get everyone together.
And with that, we welcome in our NFL analysts, Leger Douzable and Kyle Long, who happens to be a former Chicago Bear. Ben Johnson said the offense still has a ways to go. So what needs to take place and how can he help Caleb Williams make this journey a smooth one to week one? Kyle?
Well, the first red flag that stands out to me, Tiffany, is that Caleb Williams obviously needs to get rid of the football earlier. The sack numbers were frustrating to look at as a Bears fan last year. As an offensive lineman, it makes you scratch your head. Sometimes he's back there patting the football a little bit too long. I always praise the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff for getting rid of the football on time. That doesn't mean that they were running quick game. It just means that there's a time to throw it, and you got to get rid of it or the play's going to be dead. We could have turnovers. We could have interceptions, fumbles, all those things. So that's the first thing Ben Johnson has to change, has to find a way to get this guy to play comfortable and confident so that offense can start humming.
Yeah, I love that answer, Kyle. I think the second thing is to get this run game going. And I know we'll talk about this later, but I love what they did with the interior three, bringing in a few guys, one that has a lot of familiarity with Ben Johnson and Jonah Jackson, who was with him with the Detroit Lions before going to the LA Rams and now reuniting with Ben Johnson. Drew Dahlman was one of the top centers in all of free agency. And then Joe Thuney, the consummate pro who can shift out to left tackle if you need him. To me, how you help Caleb is protection in the interior. You know this, Kyle. The easiest way to get to the quarterback and the quickest way is a straight line, and that's in the interior of the offensive line. So they wanted to build that fort in front of him. That way Caleb feels a lot more comfortable. And hopefully, because he does feel comfortable, he'll go through his progressions a lot quicker and get the ball out of his hands. Because to your point, a lot of times last year, back there burping the baby, taking unwarranted sacks. Let's hope with Ben Johnson coming into the helm now, he'll be able to get that ball out a lot quicker and feel comfortable with the protection in front of him.
Okay, so let's expand on this because last year the Bears definitely had issues protecting Williams. He was sacked 68 times during his rookie season, which is the third highest total in NFL history. And you guys mentioned some of the changes they've made on the offensive line during the offseason. We'll get to that. But let's start with you, Kyle. As a former lineman, you talked a little bit about Williams getting rid of the ball quicker, that being one of the ways he can better protect himself. But what can the staff do around him to help support that?
Well, they can do a good job of utilizing some of the talent that they've got in the building. And we saw flashes of excellence from young players. I'm talking about guys like Rome Odunze, and you bring in a guy like Colston Loveland, the tight end, this year that they spent a first-round pick on. Right tackle, Darnell Wright. What are the things that he can do at a superhuman level that can make Caleb Williams' job easier? And I expect Ben Johnson to be the guy for the job, and Bears fans hope so as well. Your job as a head coach and an offensive coordinator, an offensive mind, is to put your players in the best position to have success. And let's see, there's a lot of talent there. So if they can hit the nail on the head in terms of scheme, we're going to be in for a really fun year as Bears fans.
Yeah, Kyle, to double down on that, I think Ben Johnson being as inventive as he is can help Caleb Williams. And what I mean by that is a lot of pre-snap motion, giving you a lot of eye candy. That's why the defense is second-guessing themselves. They're looking over here where the ball is coming over here. That takes so much pressure off of Caleb Williams. You saw it so many times with Jared Goff where guys were schemed wide open. I think that's what Ben Johnson is going to bring to the Chicago Bears offense, and that will also elevate Caleb Williams because there's going to be plays where guys are going to be schemed wide open. To your point earlier in this segment, he just has to get rid of the ball. When that back foot hits, he needs to know where to go with the football because Ben Johnson, again, very innovative, one of the best offensive minds in football. He's going to scheme it up to make it as easy as possible for Caleb Williams.
And sprinkling in some of that eye candy and also throwing in some of the Bears' biggest offseason additions. You guys touched on it with some of those pieces on the offensive line. Kyle, is it fair to say that that is the biggest area where they've made improvement because they got an overhaul with Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, and center Drew Dahlman coming up there from Atlanta?
You know, and I got to give Leger some flowers here because he said something that really warmed my heart. He talked about the interior part of the offensive line and how imperative it is to success in the offense. I first got indoctrinated into the school of the Drew Brees offense, where it was 3 All-Pros in the middle and a little guy back there who was safe as hell and he could just throw the football all day. That's what the Bears are trying to accomplish. And they look around the league. Some of the best offenses have really good guards. They've had, let's just say, lack of success at the center position in Chicago, and they brought in Drew Dahlman. He actually took less money to play in Chicago, and obviously Joe Thuney is going to shore up that left guard spot. They've had question marks, not anymore. Those are the big ads. That's what makes the job for Caleb Williams that much easier.
Yeah, me and Kyle were on the same page, but because he's the offensive lineman, I let him do the offensive line additions. Of course, I played defensive line, so I'm going to do the defensive line addition. Dayo Odeyingbo. Now, they lose DeMarcus Walker, who was a consummate pro, a guy that could play on the edge and kick inside on third down. Well, Kyle, guess what Dayo Odeyingbo can do? He can do that exact same thing, and he's actually 5 years younger. He doesn't even turn 26 until the season starts. You go back to that 23 season, 8 sacks, not as productive last year because they had a better rotation with the Indianapolis Colts, but the Chicago Bears believe his best football is in front of him. You see Montez Sweat right there. That is a guy that has needed another Robin to his Batman. He has not had it since he's been in that Chicago Bears uniform. I believe Dayo Odeyingbo could be that spark on the opposite side to take some attention off Montez Sweat.
See, we feel safe here because you guys got us covered on both sides of the ball. Let's talk about some key departures for the Bears over the offseason, notably quarterback Justin Fields, receiver Keenan Allen also gone. Kyle, who jumps out to you?
Well, Keenan Allen's a name that you mentioned, and he really was the safety valve for a young quarterback, the voice in the room that can calm down the young horse in Caleb Williams. And he did a great job of that. And the Bears will miss him, but they're going to need second-year Rome Odunze to step up, and they're going to need the rest of that receiver room to step up, guys like DJ Moore, and then obviously the tight ends. One that stuck out to me, and people will probably think I'm in need of crazy pills, Matt Eberflus's departure as a defensive coordinator, not necessarily a head coach, because people have their gripes about his checkered past in that department, and rightfully so. But as a defensive coordinator, the guy was nails. His defense showed up every single week. He developed young talent, and they showed up ready to compete. So I'm excited to see, but I'm a little hesitant to say they've gotten better on the defensive side of the ball.
Kyle, I went back and forth with this. I know me and you talked earlier in the day, and I was thinking, what is one departure that concerns me for the Chicago Bears? And honestly, I don't see one, because we talked about this. Tevin Jenkins was a guy I thought they would re-sign, but they essentially got 3 Pro Bowl type players in the interior of the offensive line. So they got significantly better there. I was going to say DeMarcus Walker, but I just stated it with Dayo Odeyingbo, right? 5 years younger, has a similar skill set to him, and I think has a higher upside. So I really love what Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles have done this offseason, right? There were some deficiencies on their team. They got significantly better in the offseason, and that's rare because we always talk about these additions and subtraction, but this is the first time I can say for the Chicago Bears that the additions outweigh the subtractions. Like, I'm not too worried about the players they let go in free agency. There's a clear-cut plan in Chicago with Ben Johnson, and I love what they did in free agency.
Your schedule prediction seems interesting when you say that, Leger, but I'm going to start with Kyle here, you got the Bears going 10-7 this season, and they open up with the Vikings Monday night. Then week 2, Ben Johnson meets his former team in the Lions. Kyle, why do you have this team going 10-7 this season?
Well, I'm glad you brought up that first week against the Vikings, and I think it's going to be welcome to the NFL moment for J.J. McCarthy. We're all waiting on bated breath to see what he does, but we're also waiting to see what kind of fire is lit under Caleb Williams' butt this season with having a guy like Ben Johnson in the building to lead the show. These mad scientists, they come in with a great plan, and oftentimes it's, week 1 is circled. And I'm excited to watch this team go. Obviously, they've got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, particularly in the secondary. A lot of fun guys to watch there on the back end, big-time playmakers, but it's that offensive line that'll be the glue that holds this thing together. They address that issue. Caleb Williams in year 2, how much better will he get? Because he was pretty darn good in year 1.
Yeah, Tiffany, I know you got on me and said, with all these additions, I said that the subtractions, that there were none that I was worried about leaving. But this is a gauntlet of a schedule. Let's not forget they're in the most competitive division in all of football, the NFC North. And then they also have the AFC North that they have to contend with, games against the Cowboys. So when you talk about a quarterback that is young in Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, though, even though he's very inventive, right, there's an acclimation period. This is their first year together on the offense. It's going to take some time. Just go back to when Ben Johnson was with the Detroit Lions. They really struggled that first year and a half. Let's remember, they went on that winning streak in the second year, in the back half of the season. But if I'm not mistaken, they started the season like 1-8. So, like, there's going to be an acclimation period. I think the Chicago Bears are 2 years away. I think Caleb Williams has a better year this year, but I just think they are in a gauntlet of a division, and they have a very tough schedule.
You made a strong case with that prediction there. So did you, Kyle. Leger and Kyle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tiff.
All right, let's take a look at the Bears sports line projections. They have them with 7.6 wins to be precise this season, with an 18% chance to make the playoffs. We will see how this all unfolds this year.